Once in a while, someone asks me, how did you become a priest? And so I thought I would share just a couple-minute version of exactly how that happened and a few of the details. So some of you might know this, but I grew up in west central Wisconsin, only about 45 minutes from the Twin Cities. Grew up in a great Catholic family. We grew up on a nursery farm. And I really credit so much of my upbringing and life to my parents and my siblings. But I never really wanted to be a priest growing up. I kind of was interested in what my dad did. He owned his own business, and that kind of appealed to me. So when I went to college, I went to school out of state, and I studied economics and business, thinking that, well, I would probably start my own business. I'd like to travel, like to move around. And that was my trajectory, and I got a degree in economics and business administration. Shortly before I graduated, though, a big event happened, and my father died very unexpectedly, and he was 49. So I remember flying back to go to see him and, of course, attend the funeral. And that was my first awakening to, one, the gift of time, and I didn't know how long I had, but then also the seriousness and the sobriety of mortality. My dad was a really good man and a very healthy man in many ways. And so when he was taken so abruptly, it kind of awakened me to, I want to use my time well, and maybe there's something more to life than I had been thinking about. So that really kind of brought me to a new level of depth in just living just a normal life. I started to take more seriously the gift of time and started to pray about what the Lord was asking of me. So after I graduated then, I moved to Minneapolis, St. Paul, started working in banking and IT management consulting. Really enjoyed it. Started working downtown Minneapolis. I would take the 134 bus downtown. And it was really a great period of my life, especially at 22, 23, where a lot started to happen. And one of the big events that happened was I moved into a new apartment that summer after I graduated. And after I'd moved all my boxes into the house and things like that, everyone had left, and there was like a little moment of silence. And I was just kind of sitting there, sweating a little bit from having moved in. And a thought flickered through my mind. I should read the Bible. And I'd seen my books over on the side of the room, and I saw my First Communion Bible. It's actually this one right here. And I saw it on the top shelf. Again, I just thought, oh, maybe I'll just read the Bible. And I don't remember if there had ever been a time in my life where I intentionally picked up the Bible to read with no utilitarian purpose, no homework assignments, my mom wasn't asking me, things like that. And I think that was a door that God sees to enter into my life in a new way. So I start opening up the Bible, and I just flipped open to the Gospel, and it was the Gospel of Luke. So I started with chapter 1, and I just started to read. And as I progressed, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I was thinking to myself, I wonder how this ends. This is kind of amazing. Because what was happening is the picture of Jesus was starting to be filled in by his words and deeds. And I was seeing the whole story, not just little fragments like I'd hear at Sunday Mass, but I was starting to hear the whole story. And that was like very nice. And then I got to Luke 9, Luke chapter 9, verse 23, and I stopped. Because this is where Jesus said the following: "If anyone would desire to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For what would it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose and forfeit his soul?" And I stopped because in a moment, unlike anything I'd ever experienced, something shifted in my room. There was a presence that came into my room. It was unmistakable. My hair kind of stood up on end a little bit. I was like, someone is here. And it was a loving presence. And all of a sudden, those words I started to hear like coming from inside out. It's like someone was speaking those words that I just heard in me. And they were directed to me, Jake. If you desire to call yourself a Christian, you have to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. For what would it profit you to gain everything you wanted and to lose or forfeit your soul? So in that moment, it's only in hindsight, but in that moment, I knew three things. I knew that God was unmistakably real. I knew that God knew who I was, that he actually was like, he knows my name. And that third, he was challenging me, but with a love that kind of melted me at the same time. So that event and a series of other events, but that event was really what started to awaken me to the presence of God and to my life of personal prayer. It really shifted. Again, I would travel into downtown Minneapolis for work, and I started to pray on the bus. Then I started waking up earlier in the morning with coffee, and I started to pray, especially pray with scriptures. My God is real. God knows who I am, and I can actually meet him. So that was what started the life of prayer. Many other things were starting to happen in my life in general. But then after about a year and a half, the winds, if you will, started to shift. And I started to hear in my soul like a beckoning towards the priesthood. And my initial reaction was, I do not want that. Lord, why do you have to ruin a good thing? I'm starting to come alive in you. Why would you want to take this down a different road? And so I started to make the Lord a little deal. I don't remember a particular day or time that I actually said the following, but I remember I made this at some point little prayer to God. I said, Lord, I can't deny the fact that you're putting this thought of priesthood on my soul. So if you want me to go this direction, if this is really you, I'll make you a deal. You have to make me want it. You have to change my desires. And over the course of some months, that was really what started to happen. I'd even been dating a gal or two during that period and thinking about my career and life. And all of a sudden, a lot of those desires, especially for just starting my own business and a lot of the worldly things, started to just go down. My desire for them started to go down, and my desire for priesthood and celibacy and a life totally given over to God and the gospel started to raise. And so came to a certain point, and I just had to start looking into things. Now, I had no idea what seminary was. So I remember talking to my roommate at the time. I'm like, maybe we should find out what priests do. And so he talked about a group. He said, well, I've heard of these guys called the Companions of Christ. They're diocesan priests, but they live in common. Maybe they would let us live with them for a little while we kind of discerned what priesthood is all about. So I said, that sounds like a great idea. And sure enough, that's actually what happened. I moved in with a group of priests who were gracious enough to let me live in with them while I was working. And during that period, I really saw how priests lived. I saw how they prayed. I saw how they ate. I saw how they spoke to one another. I saw about how they really sought the Lord with a complete gift of self. And within a few months, I was like, say no more. I think I will apply. I wasn't a 10 out of 10 in terms of a desire to I want to be a priest tomorrow. But I knew unmistakably that God was calling me to look into this. And so I went through the extensive application process to the seminary. And 6 long years later, I was ordained May 30th, 2015. And I haven't looked back since. Being a priest I couldn't imagine not being a priest. And I'm so grateful that the Lord broke into my life and really became much more real to me than ever before. Thank you so much.